Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gone through all the source material you sent us, and this time we're focusing on 2026 biomedical science and health trends.
It's great to be here. And it's more than just a forecast. It's really a map of how global health is being fundamentally redesigned.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack this systemic shift. We're seeing three massive forces all converging at once.
Exactly. You have the technological breakthroughs, which we'll get into, the evolution of regulations, and then maybe the most powerful force of all, consumer autonomy.
The stakes just feel incredibly high. We're looking at a huge inflection point for the entire global health economy.
And the scale is just, well, it's staggering. If you just look at the U.S. health economy, we're talking about a valuation of roughly $4.5 trillion.
So this isn't tinkering around the edges. This is a massive structural overhaul.
And you can see that turbulence in the data. We found this really fascinating divergence in outlook. Globally, most health leaders, something like 80%, they're feeling pretty positive about 2026. But in the US, nearly 20% of executives actually have a negative outlook.
Wow. In a sector that is just booming with innovation, why so much pessimism from the U.S. side?
I think it points to deep strategic pain. The legacy US providers are just getting crushed by operational costs and a really persistent workforce crisis.
So they know they have to change.
They know, they see that to compete, they have to pivot and pivot aggressively away from these old US-centric models towards something that's agile, digital, and global.
Right.
And that transition is proving to be just immensely difficult and expensive.
Okay, let's unpack that monumental pivot. And we have to start with the tech that's enabling everything else, AI. I mean, we've been talking about medical AI for years. What makes 2026 feel so different?
We finally hit the maturity curve. AI is moving on that Gartner hype cycle. We're past the peak of inflated expectations where everything was overpromised.
Right, the hype is over.
The hype is over. We're now firmly on the slope of enlightenment, which means the industry is demanding systems that are clinically validated, trustworthy, and deeply integrated.
And this is where that term agentic AI keeps coming up. For anyone listening, what is the real difference between the AI of a few years ago and this agentic AI?
Agentic AI means autonomy. They're not just giving you a prediction. They are capable of orchestrating, these complex sequences of tasks with minimal human oversight.
So it's not just an algorithm suggesting a diagnosis.
No, not at all. It's a system that can take in new patient data, automatically order the right follow-up tests, draft the preliminary report, and even schedule the next consultation, all without a person needing to click next.
That's a true co-pilot. So where are we seeing these agents actually being deployed first? Where are they maturing?
Well, it's probably no surprise it's in the areas with the richest data. So imaging-heavy specialties like radiology, pathology, that's where AI can find patterns the fastest.
Analyzing slides and images.
In real time.
Yeah.
And flagging potentially life-threatening findings instantly.
The detail that really stood out to me from the sources was the report drafting.
Yes, the metric is incredible. These agents are now consistently drafting reports that are, in many cases, over 95% complete.
Just imagine the time that frees up for a pathologist.
That's huge. It lets them focus on the really complex edge cases, on validating the findings, not just doing the grunt work.
That's a massive productivity gain. But it seems like the even bigger game changer is how it's fixing the patient experience, which hits the bottom line.
Precisely. Beyond the diagnostics, they're tackling these operational bottlenecks, especially routine patient communication chat, voice, SMS.
Getting simple questions answered.
Exactly. Large health systems are using these agents for that, and they're seeing an 85% reduction in interaction abandonment. People get fast, accurate answers, so they don't hang up.
At this point, it sounds like health systems can't afford not to adopt this.
They absolutely can't. The numbers are clear. If they fail to meet this consumer demand for a better digital experience, they're facing potential revenue losses of up to $54.5 billion over the next decade.
The consumer expects it.
They expect the same seamless experience they get from their bank or from Amazon.
And yet, there's this adoption gap. The money makes sense, the tech is ready, but they're not implementing it everywhere.
That's the real disconnect. You have 64% of leaders saying AI is their primary driver for future savings, but only 2%, a tiny fraction, have actually deployed it across their entire enterprise.
They're stuck in pilot programs?
Stuck in pilot purgatory. They're just hesitant to make that huge enterprise-wide investment and, the organizational change that comes with it.
Okay, let's connect this intelligence to how we actually create medicine. This is where, for me, it gets really fascinating. AI is fundamentally turning molecular biology into an engineering discipline.
This is the core shift in R&D. We're moving away from that sort of traditional trial and error discovery.
where you make thousands of molecules and just hope something works.
Right. Instead, we're moving to generative design and predictive simulation. We are intelligently designing drug candidates before they ever touch a physical lab.
And it's the convergence of that generative AI with physics-based simulations that's solving the old problem of not having enough data. How does the physics part speed things up so much?
And lets you virtually test the dynamics of a molecule. It's like having a virtual lab where you can skip, hundreds of thousands of failed physical experiments.
I remember seeing a specific example of this.
The one that stood out, yeah, was a generative cycle of just 4.5 hours. And it replaced what would have been an estimated 180,000 CPU hours of just brute force searching.
So it's a shortcut to the ideal molecule.
It's the ultimate shortcut.
That's a staggering acceleration. What does that do for success rates in the early pipeline?
The de-risking is just dramatic. We're seeing reports of experimental success rates being 100 times higher than historical averages.
100 times.
Yeah. Look at antibody discovery. The hit rate historically was, lingering below 1%. Now, in these AI-driven pipelines, it's consistently hitting 15 to 20%. That completely changes the economics of a research program.
So you're slashing early discovery time from, 5 to 7 years down to maybe 2 or 3? The market has to be responding to that.
Oh, it is. The AI pharma market is projected to grow at a KJ of over 27% through 2035. And North America is driving almost half of that revenue. This isn't a niche anymore. This is the foundation of the industry going forward.
And speaking of engineering biology, let's move to gene editing. 2026 feels like a watershed moment because the goal itself has shifted away from just managing disease.
To aiming for functional cures. That's the definitive shift. It was really set in motion by the earlier approval of Casgevy for sickle cell. The tech is now mature enough that researchers feel confident moving into much higher prevalence conditions.
So what are the next big targets for CRISPR? We've seen a lot of momentum in cardiovascular disease.
Exactly. There are lead programs targeting a disease called ATR. It's caused by misfolded proteins.
Yeah.
And they're demonstrating just incredible efficacy.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
A 93% reduction in the disease-causing proteins with a single one-time infusion.
That's a curative result in a major disease area, not just a rare one.
It is. And the tools themselves are getting so much more precise.
We're moving from scissors to a scalpel.
That's the perfect analogy. We now have base editing, which can chemically convert a single DNA letter without those risky double-strand breaks. And even more precise is prime editing, which can do all 12 possible DNA conversions, plus insertions, plus deletions.
The level of precision is incredible, and that leads to this idea of dynamic systems engineering, where just knowing the genome isn't enough anymore.
Right. The map isn't enough. That's the multi-omics revolution. Researchers are layering genomics with proteomics, the study of proteins and metabolomics, epigenomics,
The whole system.
the whole dynamic system. This holistic view lets them understand not just your inherited risk, but how the disease is actually being expressed and fueled in your body right now.
And now let's pivot to what might be the highest stakes engineering race out there, the brain-computer interface, or BCI competition.
It's intense. And 2026 is really defined by these highly sophisticated, fully implantable BCIs launching into human trials. The main goal right now is restoring communication.
Let's focus on the Paradromics Connexus BCI, because that was a key one in the sources. What makes their approach so significant?
Paradromics got the green light from the FDA, the IDE, to start human trials. Their device uses over 400 microelectrodes to capture these incredibly dense neural signals.
And the goal is to translate thought into speech.
Essentially, yes, to convert imagined speech, the neural patterns of thinking about moving your lips or tongue into text or a synthesized voice.
The performance metric here is fascinating. It's all about the information transfer rate. Why is getting over 200 bits per second so critical?
It's about sounding human. It's about fluid communication. If the rate is too slow, the speech is choppy, it's frustratingly delayed. You need to get above 200 bits per second to capture the speed and complexity of natural conversation.
And when you look at the competition, it's a race between different approaches. You have Paradromics, Synchron with its stent, Neuralink with its threads. What's the core trade-off for the listener to understand here?
It's really a tension between data capacity and surgical risk. The deeper you implant, the more data you get, but the more complex the surgery.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. The first company to demonstrate consistent high bandwidth voice generation with minimal long-term risk is going to define this entire market.
Let's step back a bit and look at how all this tech is changing the delivery of care. We're seeing healthcare decentralize, moving out of the hospital and into the home.
Right. Remote patient monitoring, or RPM, it's not a perk anymore. It's an operational necessity driven by staff shortages, and the systems are getting smarter.
Using AI for predictive alerts.
Yeah, flagging issues hours before symptoms even appear. It's turning reactive care into proactive intervention.
And it's getting easier for the patient, too. The devices are simpler.
That's a key shift. We're moving towards cellular-enabled RPM devices. You don't need to mess with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or apps. The device just works. It collects and sends data automatically, which is crucial for long-term monitoring.
So where is this decentralized care being implemented most effectively?
You can really break it down into three main areas. There's the ongoing monitoring for chronic conditions. Then there's post-acute care, which is about reducing hospital readmissions.
And a third.
And then the highest acuity model, which is hospital at home. That's delivering full hospital-level care IVs, diagnostics in a person's home, managed by a 247 command center.
If the model of care is shifting so dramatically, the regulators have to keep up. What are the FDA and CMS doing to manage this in 2026?
We're seeing some critical synchronization. The FDA is launching the Tempo pilot in January 2026. This allows certain digital health devices to be used in supervised care before they get full marketing authorization.
So it's a fast track.
It's a fast track as long as they commit to collecting robust, real-world data.
And that's immediately linked to payment.
It is. Tempo is connected to a CMS model called Access, which introduces outcome-aligned payments. The idea is simple. If your digital tool proves it improves outcomes in the real world, CMS will pay for it.
That makes sense.
And we're seeing it in mental health, too. The Medicare physician fee schedule is proposing expanded coverage for digital mental health, which really signals that digital therapeutics are becoming a standard part of treatment.
Now, switching to global governance, there's a critical May 2026 deadline for the WHO pandemic agreement. What's the central tension there?
The core issue is all about equity. Specifically, this thing called the Pathogen Access and Benefit Sharing System, or PABS.
And what is that trying to solve?
It's trying to balance two competing needs. On one hand, you have to protect the intellectual property and investment of wealthy nations that create vaccines. But on the other, you have to guarantee equitable and rapid access to those tools in resource-limited countries during a crisis. It's a really complex balancing act.
Let's bring this all back to the listener, to the consumer. The health system is getting smarter, but individuals are also becoming the CEO of their own health. The sources called it a metabolic reckoning.
That's the perfect term. People are moving beyond just treating symptoms to actively optimizing their internal terrain. This is driving huge demand for advanced metabolic testing and hyper-personalized nutrition.
Including the microbiome.
Yes, microbiome personalization is maturing fast. We're moving from just basic sequencing to using AI platforms like Alba Health to generate really specific dietary recommendations based on your unique gut profile.
And we're seeing muscle mass being recognized as a key longevity marker.
A critical, measurable marker of metabolic flexibility. This whole demand for optimization is fueling the peptide market, which is projected to exceed $224 billion.
But there's a warning there.
A necessary one. Experts are warning about the proliferation of non-FDA-approved substances being used in some of these longevity clinics. At the same time, the focus on brain health is exploding. The nootropics market is projected to hit over $11 billion by 2030.
Let's look at the physical infrastructure that makes all this possible. We've talked about decentralization, but some innovation hubs are centralizing expertise. The Houston Blueprint is a great example.
Absolutely. Houston's Texas Medical Center is building a true live work environment called Helix Park. In January 2026, they're launching a 34,000 square foot innovation lab space
Designed specifically for startups.
to embed startups right in the heart of the clinical research environment to accelerate everything. And they're building a hotel, a conference center, a residential tower, all right there to keep the researchers, clinicians, and investors together.
That's a whole ecosystem.
A whole ecosystem. And it includes workforce development. They have programs like BioPath, which introduces biomanufacturing to high school students to build that domestic workforce we so desperately need.
All right, before we wrap up, let's do a quick fire round. What are the high-impact drugs in the 2026 pipeline that you think people should be watching?
Okay. In metabolic health, watch Novo Nordisk's Kagrasima and Eli Lilly's oral alternative for obesity, or for Glipron, that could see approval late in 2026.
And in neurology?
For rare diseases, Ionis plans to launch Zilganersen for Alexander disease. Takeda is submitting its drug for narcolepsy type 1. And in cell therapy, watch Atara's Tab-cel for a rare cancer. It's getting close to U.S. approval.
That is just a phenomenal amount of convergent innovation. We've covered everything from autonomous AI to single infusion gene cures.
The synthesis is pretty clear. The entire system is moving toward intelligence, precision, and patient autonomy. Success in this new world is all about pairing that technological maturity with human judgment.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening, regardless of what sector you're in?
It means your organizational agility, how fast you can adopt these digital tools, and your ability to earn trust are really the new currencies of competitiveness. You have to be prioritizing digital integration and the consumer experience.
We talked about this incredible shift from just mapping the body, the genome cartography,
Yeah.
to actively engineering it with AI and tools like CRISPR. It really implies a future where interventions are predictive, maybe even preventative.
And that raises a really important question for you to think about. If biology is truly becoming an engineering discipline, what does that fundamentally change about how we define health versus disease? And what new responsibilities does that place on you as the CEO of your own body?